Hello everyone and welcome to the webcast. My name is Christine Dursey and I'm the Executive Director of APA Ohio and Vice Chair of the New Urbanism Division. I will be the moderator for today's webcast. Today, Friday, August 2nd, we will hear the presentation Addressing the Needs of LGBT Seniors. For technical help during today's webcast, type your questions in the chat box found in the webinar toolbar to the right of your screen or call the 1-800 number shown. For content questions related to the presentation, type those in the questions box also located in the webinar toolbar to the right of your screen. We will answer those at the end of the presentation during the question and answer session. On your screen is a list of the sponsoring chapters and divisions. I would like to thank all of the participating sponsors for making these webcasts possible. Today's webcast is sponsored by the Gays and Lesbians and Planning Division. For more information on this division and how to become a member, visit planning.org/divisions/Gallup. To learn more about all the 20 divisions, visit planning.org/divisions. On your screen is a list of upcoming webcasts. To register for these webcasts, please visit utah-apa.org/webcasts. And of course, like us on Facebook, Planning Webcast Series, to receive up-to-date information on the Planning Webcast Series sponsored by chapters and divisions. To log your CM credits for attending today's webcast, visit planning.org/CM, select today's date, Friday, August 2nd, and select the title Addressing the Needs of LGBT Seniors. And this webcast is available for 1.5 CM credits. We are recording today's webcast and it will be available on our YouTube channel later today. Just search Planning Webcast on YouTube. A PDF of the PowerPoint will also be available upon request. I'd now like to turn it over to our presenters.
Good afternoon or good morning, everyone. My name is Tony Lacola. I'm the GALIP Vice Chair, and I'm also a Senior Planner with the Hillsborough County City-County Planning Commission in Tampa, Florida. Just a brief introduction before we move on with the presentation and the presenters today. I just want to go through a few slides with you. Let me get this going. There we go. Today in the U.S., there are about 40 million Americans over the age of 65. It's about 13% of the U.S. population. However, by 2030, only about 15 years from now, that population is expected to balloon to about 72 million people, essentially 1 in every 5 Americans over the age of 65. This is a huge demographic change coming our way, and most communities are ill-prepared. Of those 40 million Americans over the age of 65, somewhere between 1.5 million and 3 million are gay, lesbian, or transgender, but unfortunately we don't have good statistics. Many older Americans are simply not out, and the U.S. Census does not collect data on sexual orientation. This number could be as high as 4 million, but given the numbers of LGBT seniors today, and given the current environment where more LGBT people are coming out, many who work in the field of LGBT aging feel the number could be well over 7 million by the year 2030. Today's out seniors are baby boomers reaching retirement age, and they're the first out generation of elders in our history. Many have spent years fighting for equality and acceptance, and they're not prepared to go back in the closet. The biggest concern now is not trying to conform to an unwelcoming society, but rather who will care for them as they grow older. They're less likely to ever have been married or have children, leaving them without close relatives to take care of them as they grow older. So what are some of the challenges of the aging LGBT community? Well, basic health care is a significant problem. 80% of long-term care for older people is provided by family members, such as spouses, children, or other relatives. LGBT seniors are only about half as likely as their heterosexual counterparts to have a close family member to rely on for help. Also, LGBT seniors rely heavily on services of professional healthcare providers such as doctors, pharmacists, or other hospital and nursing home staff. These are people who are often uncomfortable with or could be hostile toward LGBT elders. Caregiving issues come up when LGBT partners aren't recognized under the law. Often healthy partners don't have the ability to take care of family, they don't have the ability to take family medical leave or make medical or funeral decisions for their sick partners, unless, of course, they put in specific legal arrangements before. Unfortunately, many people don't make such arrangements, either because they can't afford the legal costs or because, like so many other Americans, they think they could just put it off for another day. Many LGBT seniors fear harassment and hostility from healthcare providers or at senior centers. The services might be available to help them as they grow older. However, they tend to avoid settings where they could be forced back into the closet or fear being who they are. Financial insecurity is another major challenge. Poverty rates among elder lesbian and gay couples are 9.1% and 4.9% respectively, compared to 4.6% among their elder heterosexual counterparts. Several factors contribute to higher poverty rates, including employment discrimination, barriers in Social Security, Medicaid, pension plans, retirement plans, and estate tax and inheritance laws that deny same-sex couples the key retirement benefits afforded to the broader population. In addition, state laws can shut LGBT partners out of an inheritance or could require them to pay steep taxes on an estate that a surviving heterosexual spouse would inherit tax-free. The surviving partner or spouse is left with far less economic stability than before the partner died. Beyond state laws, family members of the deceased will often lay claim over an estate, leaving a long-term partner with little ability to inherit what might be rightfully theirs. Social isolation is another challenge. LGBT people are twice as likely to be single and to live alone, and 3 to 4 times as likely to be childless. Often they're less likely to feel unwelcome in places where many older people socialize, such as senior centers, volunteer centers, and places of worship. Research and SAGE's experience show that harmful effects of this include depression, delayed care seeking, poor nutrition, and premature mortality. Few aging service providers plan for or outreach to the LGBT community, and few are prepared to address the insensitivity and the discrimination aimed at LGBT elders. Here are presenters for today. We have Britta Larson. She's the Director of Senior Services for the Center on Halsted in Chicago. Serena Worthington, Director of Community Advocacy and Capacity Building with SAGE, which is Services and Advocacy for GLBTC Elders. And finally, we'll have Joy Silver, President and CEO of Rainbow Vision Properties, Senior Living, Silver Senior Living, and Griot Circle Incorporated board member. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Britta.
Okay, great, Tony. Thanks for the nice introduction to the topic, and I'm really excited to have so many folks on the call today. I'm really excited to have so much interest in the topic. So before I go too far, I will just introduce myself. I'm Britta Larson, Director of Senior Services here at Center on Halsted, and a little bit more about my agency. So Center on Halsted, the mission here is to advance community and secure the health and well-being of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer people of Chicagoland. Okay, and Center on Halsted is the most comprehensive community center of its kind in the Midwest. Some of our programs include HIV testing and prevention, mental health program, anti-violence program, community and cultural program. We have a very large youth program serving young adults, who identify primarily as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer between the ages of 13 and 24. And of course, then we also have our senior program. And our senior program serves about 500 people over the course of the year, the majority of whom identify as LGBTQ. And we offer a wide variety of recreational, social, educational activities, wellness programs, home sharing program, friendly visitor program, just to name a few. And really what I'm here to talk to you about today is a really exciting development. In 2014, Center on Halstead, in partnership with Heartland Alliance, will open the first lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer-friendly affordable housing development in the Midwest. And who is Heartland Alliance? Our partners in this project. They are the leading anti-poverty organization in the Midwest. Each year, Heartland Alliance helps nearly 1 million people around the world who are homeless, living in poverty, or seeking safety. Heartland Housing, which is Heartland Alliance's housing division, is a leader in developing and managing affordable housing in the Midwest. Heartland Housing has developed and managed more than 1,700 affordable homes across the Chicago region and the Midwest. So really, to be honest, they're perfect partners in this project, in this endeavor. So how will this project work and what will it look like? Heartland Housing is the developer of the project, and they will be the property manager. Center on Halstead will provide the programs and services to the residents of the building. And I would say this partnership is really key to the success of the development of the housing and the long-term success once it's built. Heartland Housing is really bringing the expertise in securing the financing for this type of affordable housing and their expertise as property managers. Center on Halstead is bringing our expertise working with LGBT older adults and the LGBT community. So really, I can't speak highly enough of the project and the importance of having a key partner in this project. The project will follow all fair housing laws, which is important to mention and to clarify and to emphasize, because when we say it's LGBTQ friendly, we also need to make sure we state that everyone is welcome to apply as long as they meet the age criteria for the project and the financial criteria, as this is affordable housing. But we welcome all sexual orientations to apply, all gender identities to apply. We're not discriminating in any way, and we, of course, are following all fair housing laws. For this project, residents must be 55 and over and must meet financial criteria to qualify for affordable housing. I wanted to just take a quick minute to talk about some key points that were really important to seeing this project to completion and getting it up off the ground. And I would say it's incredibly important to have buy-in from key stakeholders, including elected officials. And I would also recommend any other project like this across the country. My experience is that there really needs to be a champion for the project, especially an elected official who can really move it forward and help kind of get key stakeholders behind the project. And I would also want to highlight the long-term commitment to project development. So Center on Halstead, we have been talking about this development and planning for it and trying to secure financing for it for about 10 years now. So it is certainly a long-term endeavor. I would say the first few years we're just communicating our vision for the housing, articulating the need, getting support, again, from those elected officials and key stakeholders. And of course, now we're rapidly moving forward at a quick pace, but it certainly is not something that will happen overnight. And the project will be a mix of 79 units, a mix of studios and one-bedroom apartments. And the newly constructed building will be connected to a historic town hall police station. The historic town hall police station will be remodeled and will serve as community space for the residents of the building. And the former police station will also become the new home of our senior programs at Center on Halsted. The senior housing that we're building is directly next door to Center on Halsted. There will be retail space on the first floor, and construction will include green design features and aim for leadership in energy and environmental design LEED silver certification. Construction has begun. It began about last month, and the project is expected to be completed in the fall of 2014. And I have a little rendering of the building. So to the left, you see the historic Town Hall Police Station, and to the right, you see the new 6-story structure that we will be constructing with retail space on the first floor. And then to the far right of the photo is where Center on Halsted is located. A series of 5 charrettes were conducted in 2013 with a diverse group of LGBTQ older adults. And through the charrettes, LGBTQ older adults were able to help inform the design process for the interior apartment space and community space, as well as provide input for the programs and services offered to the residents. The series of charrettes, they were time-consuming and a little expensive to pull everyone together. We had designers in the room, planners, kind of pulling together this group of seniors, but I would highly recommend this model for other senior housing developments. It was wonderful to hear from the seniors themselves how they envisioned using the space, both their interior apartment as well as the common areas of the building, to really get their feedback. The seniors felt very vested in the project. They were excited to have the architects and folks in the room eager to hear from them and learn from them. And I really feel that the project ultimately will be best served having gone through this series of 5 design charrettes early on in the process. So I was very, very excited with that part of the process. Project financing. This is about a $26 million project funded through a combination of city, state, and federal funds, low-income housing tax credits, City of Chicago Home Investment Partnership Program, equity from the Illinois Affordable Housing Tax Credit, historic tax credits, and energy efficient grant from the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity are some of the funding streams. And as you can see, it's a really complex funding stream to fund this type of project. And Heartland Alliance, they really managed securing the financing for the project. Additionally, rental subsidies will be offered from the Chicago Housing Authority. And that means that residents will pay 30% of their income towards rent. And this is my final slide. And I wanted to kind of pose the question, will this project meet the housing needs of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer community, older adult community in the Chicagoland area? And absolutely, I would say that research has shown that Chicagoland LGBTQ seniors have identified housing as one of their greatest unmet needs. And anecdotally, we've seen a lot of interest in this senior housing that we're building from our LGBTQ older adults. There are approximately 40,000 LGBTQ older adults in the Chicagoland area. And again, this housing that we're building will have 79 units. So just anecdotally, and also with research, I would say that this housing by no means will meet the full need or the full demand that we're experiencing with the LGBTQ older adults. And to be honest, I don't know if we could ever build enough LGBTQ friendly senior housing to really meet the full need and the demand that we're seeing here. So I'm a big proponent, in addition to constructing LGBTQ affirming housing, it's also important to promote cultural competency and advocacy on behalf of LGBTQ older adults to improve the quality of services provided to this community by mainstream service providers. So how can we engage in other senior living communities that are already built and already in existence? How can we engage them to become more culturally competent, more LGBTQ friendly places for our seniors to live? We have a long way to go, but agencies are requesting training through the National Resource Center on LGBT aging, trying to learn more about how they can make their residents more LGBT friendly. And so I think that that's an important component as we build LGBT friendly housing. I think it's an important component to really meet the full demand and full need that our seniors have. Okay. All right, at this time, I'm going to turn over the presentation to Serena Worthington.
Hi, everybody. My name is Serena Worthington, and as Tony said, I'm the Director of Community Advocacy and Capacity Building for SAGE. Thank you very much, Britta, for passing it over. And I want to thank the American Planning Association Gay and Lesbian Planning Division for inviting me, and specifically Tony for making sure that we were all together for this. I'm pleased to be presenting with all of you. I'm going to cover 3 things today. I'll talk a little bit about SAGE as an organization, a little bit about the national landscape of LGBT aging, and I'm going to focus a lot on a case study of 2 sets of fictional couples and how they're impacted by issues related to aging. So I'll get started by saying that SAGE is a 35-year-old grassroots organization. It was founded by 2 social workers who felt like they saw their friends and colleagues fall off the map as they aged, and they very much wanted to have a successful infrastructure to address their needs. So they built SAGE. Over the 35-plus years, the program's grown quite a bit. We offer programs in Midtown Manhattan and throughout all 5 boroughs. In Midtown, we operate the nation's first senior center that's full-time, dedicated to LGBT older adults. It has a cyber center, a nutritional meal program, and a dizzying array of programs and services that go on all day. We serve dinner every night and have myriad programs and educational opportunities throughout the day. We also offer a number of those same programs throughout the city. We have a specific cited piece in Harlem, and then we also work with community partners in the boroughs. I also run, in my role at SAGE, a network of 24 affiliates in 18 states in the District of Columbia. And we'll talk a little bit more about those momentarily. This is a quick picture of what they look like. These affiliates are standalone. They're like chapters. That might be the best way to describe them. So we don't manage them or influence them financially, but they are mission aligned with our organization. They can be all volunteer or housed in a larger organization, like the program at Center on Halstead is housed in the LGBT Senior Center, or LGBT Community Center. Could also be in a senior center or a mainstream aging agency. A lot of the affiliates have tiny staff, maybe 1 to 3. Sometimes they have small budgets. That's generally the trend. There's a few with larger budgets. Most of their programming, if not all, is free. A few of the affiliates are membership-based organizations. And they offer a similar array of programs to Britta's programming. We also operate the National Resource Center on LGBT Aging, which is the nation's first technical assistance resource center for LGBT older adults. Its mission is to improve the quality of service and supports for LGBT older adults that was established in 2010 through a federal grant from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and it provides training, technical assistance, and educational resources to aging providers, LGBT organizations, LGBT older adults, and anyone else who's interested. It's led by SAGE in partnership with 14 leading organizations from around the country. As part of their training effort, they have a core group of more than 30 trainers who offer a cultural competency curriculum across the country to either LGBT or aging organizations. The curriculum is a minimum of 4 hours, and they've offered it to nearly 3,000 folks across the country in the 2 years that they've been offering it. And a lot of the people who take this are aging providers and LGBT organizations, but anyone can request it. So I'm going to move on to talking about this case study, and this is compiled from the report you see in front of you, Improving the Lives of LGBT Older Adults, a joint project with SAGE and the Movement Advancement Project. This draws on research from a variety of sources. If you're interested in those citations, if you check out either one of these websites, you can see them. And we're going to talk about the challenges faced by LGBT elders for successful aging. There's three main areas: the effects of stigma, past and present. This is a generation that came of age at a time in which the language of sexuality was absent and heavily stigmatized. Homosexuality was the more common term, and it was criminalized, deemed a mental illness. We also saw a variety of police charges in courts and in state laws over the years. What this means is that people who've lived through these changes have the accumulated effects on their mental health, and many are likely to remain closeted, as Tony said. Aging is difficult without some form of support, and this effect of stigma can lead to higher rates of morbidity, mortality, infection, depression, and decline. So LGBT older adults do tend to rely on families of choice for care and support. They're more likely to be single and less likely to have children, and as I said, more likely to rely on partners. And many of their partners lack relationship recognition. Currently, we have 13 states with relationship recognition, because we added 2 this week, but that leaves 37 states without relationship recognition. SAGE's recommendation is that we design the safety nets that are designed around marriage that currently exclude LGBT couples be altered to be more inclusive. And we also note that there is an overall failure to address stigma and discrimination in the formal services and supports for LGBT older adults. According to Freedom to Marry, 30% of the U.S. population lives in a state that has relationship recognition or honors out-of-state marriages of same-sex couples, but that means 70% of the population that would like to be married cannot be married. And this is important as we talk about the federal protections offered by marriage. So I mentioned the barriers to successful aging in terms of financial security. We also see barriers with good health and health care and social and community support. I hope you're not seeing me move that control around. I'm not going to go into these statistics because Tony reviewed these, but you'll note that there are definite income disparities. There's other financial disparities that I'll go into a little bit. In terms of Medicaid, SAGE advocates for spousal impoverishment protections for same-sex couples. Currently, those are offered to opposite-sex couples and are designed to keep them out of poverty, so an LGBT survivor would not be able to keep their home, their substantial assets, or livable income. Currently, retiree health benefits are not extended to same-sex couples. The federal law allows an employer to provide health insurance to a heterosexual spouse of an employer or a retiree as a tax-free benefit. But for same-sex couples, the LGBT retiree pays income taxes on that benefit, and this taxation can cost about $1,000 a year. There's also an impact on tax-qualified retirement plans and IRAs. Under current federal law, same-sex couples have to draw down the amount after the original account holder dies, and the lower amounts are drawn out by survivors. And again, those are in states without relationship recognition. Pensions, about half the employers do not offer benefits to surviving partners. Veteran benefits are changing, which we're really excited about, and I think we'll learn more about that as we see the effects of the overturn of the Defense of Marriage Act. And inheritance laws, in terms of inheritance laws, same-sex couples need specific and expensive legal arrangements, a will, revocable living trust, a pour of a will, financial power of attorney, etc. State laws step in some cases, and most states don't recognize inheritance laws as they apply to same-sex couples. Tony talked a little bit about the health disparities. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly because I don't want to use too much of my time. But they're often overlooked and ignored. Families of choice are in some cases not given legal recognition. Healthcare environments can be inhospitable to LGBT elders. Nursing homes in some cases can fail to protect LGBT elders. And visitation policies and decision-making laws specifically include families of choice, but sometimes the institution will choose to ignore those. Here's some statistics on folks who have delayed care or cited that they were neglected by caregivers. Some of the barriers to social support are ones you can imagine. People might access a mainstream senior center, not feel welcome. They might feel isolated from the broader community. They may have insufficient opportunities to contribute, and that's, volunteerism or civic engagement. And they might just be discriminated in housing. One cheering thing I'll note is that in a recent study, the researchers found that area agencies on aging, which operate our senior centers around the country, are very interested in being more welcoming to LGBT elders at the rates you see on the screen. They're a little bit tentative, but these are really cheering slides to me. That's a little bit about the study that drew these conclusions. And there's a little bit more about that. The area agencies on aging have offered some type of training or are willing to offer training. And interestingly enough, the agencies that had some training had more inquiries related to people being LGBT. So when we tie all this together, we'll get to this case study. This looks at George and Maria. Again, these are fictional couples, and Ellen and Rita. George and Maria are an opposite-sex couple. Ellen and Rita, same-sex couple. They start out with the exact same circumstances. They have good health. In retirement, they have a house, $50,000 nest egg, and a pension. George and Maria have a combined Social Security income of $1,431 a month. This is a nice, healthy amount. Ellen and Rita's is less because they earned less over their lifetime to contribute to Social Security. George and Maria enjoy a financial security, a joint survivor pension from George's pension, and Ellen and Rita do not have that same option. George and Maria tend to be more engaged in community and volunteerism, and Ellen and Rita, in their experience, have been unwelcome at their senior center. George and Rita both fall ill. George and Maria experience knowledgeable, friendly providers. Ellen and Rita find that their health providers are hostile when Ellen visits. Maria gets to make the critical care decisions for George, and in the case of Ellen and Rita, she's challenged for her decision-making authority, even though that's the mandate to hospitals and federally funded nursing homes and assisted living environments. George is released and receives home-based, community-based services. Rita's released, but she's afraid to request those services because she doesn't want those folks in her home, and she's unsupported as a caregiver. George enters a nursing home. 5 years later, Medicaid allows Maria to keep the home and their savings and income under the spousal impoverishment protections I mentioned earlier. Rita enters a nursing home 2 years later, because she does not have those same protections. She loses their nest egg and Rita's income to Medicaid. So these two stories of aging progress. George and Rita pass. Maria inherits George's nest egg and income. She gets George's pension. She gets survivor benefits, so it's higher than her own would have been. She makes the burial decisions and is not challenged and gets a lot of emotional support from the community. For Ellen and Rita, the nest egg is already gone, so Ellen does not have that. It pays for Rita's long-term care as a result of this lack of spousal protection, she loses her home. She doesn't have access to Reba's pension and can't apply for Social Security survivor benefits. She chooses to stay in the community and be closeted with no emotional support and go on food stamps and SSI. So the bottom line, these people have really different outcomes based on the various circumstances. Many of these are going to change under the many sweeping changes that are happening as a result of DOMA and Prop 8 being struck down. But in the 37 states without this recognition, it's still important to think about these states ensuring that the states with relationship recognition, ensuring that folks get federal benefits equally, and in states without relationship recognition, we propose that permanent partners be included in Social Security, Medicaid, family medical leave, hospital visitation, and medical decision making. And again, that's just enforcing an existing law and inheritance laws and state taxes. And I'm going to skip through to the end in the interest of time. Thanks everybody for this presentation today, and I'm going to turn it over to Joy.
Hi, I'm Joy Silver, and I'm going to talk about some of the things that were not discussed by my co-presenters here. I really want to thank them because they make a great case. Particularly was impressed with Britta as she spoke about these projects are not for the faint-hearted. They do take a number of years. The Rainbow Vision took about 9 years to get out of the ground before we were able to put it together. So you really have to hang in there. And of course, a lot of the development concepts that she talked about were critical, including getting key stakeholders in among the politicians and people who were in the cities to be behind you. Anyway, many times I'm asked, why do LGBTs Q, I, and A, as we're now known, seniors, need a place of their own? So I show you this photo. These are a group of men who I'm now working with out in Palm Springs area who would like to have assisted living and memory care facility of their own. So I think it becomes clear as our culture demands its own fulfillment. Rainbow Vision started in 1997 at a time when there were 70 projects on the table, and Rainbow Vision Santa Fe Independent Assisted Living and Condo Community was the only one that got out of the ground and supplied and provided assisted living. And today I think Fountain Grove is attempting to do that with a model called the CCRC model, albeit with a higher price tag. There's an entry fee there, and Rainbow Vision was dedicated to not having an entry fee. We were also going to be doing projects in Palm Springs, which I'm still working with now, but it was going to be under the Rainbow Vision name, and Bay Area, and we have a partner up in Vancouver. Oh dear. Okay, here we go. Okay, some of the critical things that have not been talked about but have been set up are the aging in the record moments as to what happens when care is needed. We have been hearing about the affordability process. We've heard that LGBT people may be isolated, but there are some other things that we need to put our eye to now, and that is the expectation that the care will be manageable. There's a lot of talk about aging in place, which is possible up until a point, but right now memory care and Alzheimer's and dementia are very critical they're very critical to how we're going to deal with that and really looking at it straight ahead. There's also a measurement of progress against what we ideologically think is going to happen to us when we are aging. And I'm going to go into that a little bit more as we go on. One of the other things becomes problematic are LGBT. It's almost as if all of these genders and these orientations all are under one flag and we all get along fine. And actually there are many issues and challenges between all the parties. So not necessarily would a community meeting the needs of LGBT necessarily be in the same facility or in the same residential community. Again, I want to go back to something that Britta was talking about, and that is teaming with others to accomplish similar goals and forming a working entity. And SAGE certainly has done a lot of partnership with their programmatic aspects, with the knowledge that they have over the long period of time that they've been in business. And I've been providing services. Rainbow Vision, myself, I was part of a SAGE program back in '97 that was looking at doing, potentially doing some housing with residential services. That's how I was part of that committee, subcommittee for senior housing. This is Rainbow Vision in Santa Fe. If you can see right here where my pointer's pointing, the second floor was where we were providing assisted living services. This is the assisted living of Rainbow Vision Santa Fe. This is the living room, community space. I show you the bathrooms because they're all ADL. You can't see it here, but you can wheel a wheelchair into that community dining area. This is strictly for assisted living, by the way, assisted living unit, and the hallways with the requisite size of the hallways to be able to provide our setting. You can see our design elements are quite different probably than many of the places that you may have observed if you've ever gone to an assisted living community. We also have the challenges on the economic downturn on the senior living residential communities across the country. And I talk about that because recently there was, this Tuesday was talked about assisted living as provided by Emeritus, and it was quite frightening to see what the problems were that surfaced for Emeritus. But I do want to say that the provider challenge to provide people in assisted living, most of the people in assisted living, I'd say at least half, when you go from level 3 up, are basically have problems with memory care and Alzheimer's and dementia. It becomes a bigger issue when you're looking at family of choice. There's a few things to look at. Basically, the baby boomer population is faced with the challenges of aging. One of the greatest challenges for the LGBT population that we found was a realistic definition for the concept of old. What is old and when might you need additional help? In general, we don't have the familial decision influencers, which are usually known as the oldest daughter caretaker in the mainstream. And so to face the obstacle as we know it for those who provide these services is called I'm not ready for that yet. Who is it that's going to be our advocate and let us know when it's time to stop driving the car? Usually the oldest daughter caretaker will say to mom, maybe you want to stop driving or you need to stop driving now. And so we don't have the influencers that help us know when care is necessary. And then of course we have the challenge of financial, because being prepared financially by planning for retirement is an issue in general for the baby boomer generation, mainly because all of our assets were put into, if we own homes, were put into the ownership of those homes, and then the stock market and the real estate market fell, and there hadn't been any time for fixed income people to make back the money that they lost during that time period. So we have a lot to face with the upcoming aging. Rainbow Vision also provided 33% affordable apartments within our community as a requirement of the city of Santa Fe. I do want to let people know that that was going on. So I go to you who are all participating in this, and I say, here's to you. That's my, my two business partners on the days that we put the shovel in the ground, and that's what we were doing. So I want to thank you all for having me here and also for allowing me to be part of this fabulous presentation. Thanks so much. I will turn this over to Tony. If I can find, whoops.
Here's the contact information on the screen if you'd like to get in touch with any of the speakers today. Everyone's listed. I'll also provide contact information for the Gays and Lesbians and Planning Division during the question and answer period. So just keep checking your screens and that will pop up as well. We have a website through APA and there are a couple of Facebook pages. So feel free to visit our Facebook pages and join. We also encourage you to join the division. You'll find a variety of information and resources, or we can put you in contact with people who might be able to provide additional resources to you. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to our webcast coordinator, and we'll go forward with the question and answer session.
Thanks, everybody. Okay, we do have a bank of questions that we will go over now. Hold on, let me get my screen working. There we go. Okay, the first two questions are actually for Britta. The first one is related to the housing project you talked about and the requirement for having 55-year-old residents. Does this mean that both partners must be 55 at the time of move-in, Britta?
That's a great question, and thank you to the audience member who posed the question. Yes, my understanding is that this is affordable senior housing and that all residents must be 55 or over. The vast majority of the seniors that we are serving are single. And yes, of course, it is somewhat common within the gay community for men to date younger men. I don't anticipate this being too significant of an issue. And I'll just, while we're talking about the age, I'll just mention that the fact that the age is 55 and over is really important because most affordable senior housing, especially in Chicago, but across the nation, the age is much higher. 62 is the typical age for affordable senior housing. And for all the reasons sort of mentioned in the presentation today, LGBTQ older adults are much more likely to start to have challenges at a younger age compared to their heterosexual counterparts. So health challenges, financial challenges, isolation issues come at a younger age. And so our age for our programs at Sunshine Halstead for senior programs is 55. And so we're really excited that the housing next door will mirror that age and will be a little bit younger than many other senior living properties, affordable senior living communities in our area. And the next question?
Thank you. The next question is, how many of the 79 units are receiving rental subsidies from the Chicago Housing Authority?
Mm-hmm. Great. That's a great question. So we were able to secure 100% of the building will have rental subsidies offered. So all 79 units, I believe, will have the subsidy attached. And so residents will be paying 30% of their income.
Great, thank you. This next question is actually directed to Joy. Joy, how is aging more drastic for the LGBT community?
I'm not saying it's more drastic necessarily, but what the issue becomes is that there at the time when care is needed, usually in the mainstream, families who have children, grandchildren, they can be advocates for their loved one or their senior. And what happens among LGBT people, and I'm making a sweeping generalization, but what happens is that we're talking about families of choice that tend to be our peers. So that our chosen family tends to be people who are our own age and who are also in need of similar services. And so we may have exactly the same issues as we go forward, and therefore cannot serve as an influencer as to when those critical decisions need to be made. So we don't have an advocate and we don't have a decision influencer.
Great, thank you. The next question is for Tony. Has SAGE begun to identify affordable housing developers that are interested in GLBT projects?
I think Serena might be better suited to answer that question because she works with SAGE directly. Serena?
Hi, this is Serena. Thank you for the question. We actually just did, with one of the people on this call with Britta, we just did a podcast in partnership with Enterprise Community Services, in which we gathered all of the folks in the country that are working on LGBT affordable housing projects. And I make that distinction because there are definitely market rate projects around the country. There are projects going on simultaneously in Chicago, Philadelphia. The Philadelphia project is going to be very near their LGBT center, and the SAGE program in Philadelphia is going to run their programs and services. That is affordable housing with tax credits. There's also a project, it will be the second project for gay and lesbian elder housing, and that is in Los Angeles. Gay and lesbian elder housing is the nation's first developer of affordable housing. They built a project called Triangle Square. It's 103 units, I believe, and they are building their second unit called the Argyle, which will be about 40 units, and that construction is underway there. There's also a project that is already taking applications in the Twin Cities area. That is a affordable rental. It is a joint project with a faith community and a housing developer, and it's very interesting. They're going to have I can't remember what it's called. It's their LGBT archive is also going to be housed there, which I think is a really interesting component. And then there is also a project in San Francisco with the LGBT social service provider called Open House. Their project is called 55 Laguna, and it's on a multi-use site. So they're partnering with the city, with a university extension, with a for-profit developer and themselves, and they are nearing breaking ground. They have been in process for a very, very long time. They had a number of stops and starts, and I have to say, are some of the most dedicated people that kept this going and kept it alive. And that will be affordable housing for LGBT older adults, along with mainstream housing and a concentration of services for LGBT older adults. If you're interested in more about that, you can listen to the podcast at Enterprise Community Services webinar archive, and also at sageusa.org, where we have an archive of all of our podcasts. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next question, I think anyone could answer this one. It says, I noticed there wasn't any transportation issue mentioned. Are there any examples of transportation for LGBT seniors as they travel to and from places, such as the affordable LGBT housing establishment in the Midwest Chicago example?
Okay, I'll take that since it referenced Chicago. So the senior housing development is going to be next door to Center on Halsted, which is in the heart of Lakeview in Chicago. And the vast majority of the seniors that we serve do not own a car for the most part, but public transportation in this area is excellent. excellent. We are very close to both bus transportation as well as train transportation. And so for the most part, transportation is not a significant challenge. In this neighborhood, actually, it's the opposite challenge in that parking, if you do own a vehicle, is difficult and can be expensive. Center on Halsted does not have dedicated parking spots for our patrons of the building. The senior housing next door will have a number of spots for the residents of the building. But street parking is really difficult because we are 2 blocks from Wrigley Field, and during Cubs games, it's difficult. So we are a very urban setting here, and public transportation is excellent, and I certainly am aware of the fact that that's not the case for other folks across the country. But here, our biggest challenge is more or less parking. Thanks.
Thanks, Britta. Before we go on, there is one question. There have been several other abbreviations used besides LGBT. I remember one of the speakers using Q for queer. Could someone define all of these terms?
We have lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgendered, LGBTQ. For Rainbow Vision, it meant Quakers. They were the likely mainstream people to move into Rainbow Vision, by the way, but I think it usually means questioning or queer. I, intersex, and A, allies.
Thank
you. Okay, let's see.
This,
go ahead.
This is Britta. Since we're talking about terminology, I do a lot of cultural competency trainings, and whenever I have the chance, I like to talk a little bit further about the word queer, especially in the context that on today's call we're talking about older adults. And for many older adults that we serve here, the word queer has a very negative connotation, and they really don't prefer that word and can be offended when that word is used. But for the broader community, the broader LGBT community, there is definitely a movement happening where the word queer has been reclaimed, and many folks, especially younger generations, prefer the word queer and self-identify as queer. And so in the past year, Center on Halsted added the word queer to our mission statement, and we certainly have a number of folks, especially younger folks, who identify as queer. However, adding the word queer to our mission statement really upset and offended some of our seniors. So words mean different things to different people, and so it's just a word of caution around the word queer, especially in regards to working with older adults. But it's always okay to ask someone how they identify, and there's no kind of word that necessarily it works for everyone, because words mean different things to different people and change over time. So it's always okay to just ask someone how they prefer to be identified. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, I think one of our speakers actually wanted to see if someone could go back and talk about ambulating services.
I wanted to speak a little bit about ambulation challenges, actually, and I think that when we're talking about a 55-plus community, which is what has been discussed generally, what we find is that 55 usually means average age of 63. It's a very short time period from there to having ambulating and walking challenges. There's steps, canes, wheelchairs, and so it's critical to use what's called universal design to make sure that things can be accessed. But using public transportation becomes a very difficult thing to do when walking and ambulating is an issue, and this happens very quickly as we get into past the age of 70, 75, 80. Some people who have MS are already starting out with those issues. I think we have to start looking at transportation in a different way. Some cities have the senior ride service, and of course communities like Rainbow Vision have their own van for these very items.
Okay, I think we're going to switch the presentation screen over. There we go. To Serena.
Hi, everybody. This is Serena. As a follow-up for the folks who are interested in the projects around the country, I'm throwing out some really quick pictures. You probably won't be able to read them very well. In this format, but I wanted to give you a quick highlight. The first image you'll see is 55 Laguna in San Francisco. That's a 110-unit multi-use site project. Construction begins soon. Next up is the Argyle, the second project by Gay and Lesbian Elder Housing, and that's 40 units. Their existing building, Triangle Square, is pictured below, and again, I think that's 103 or 110 units. On the top left, you'll see a rendering of the John C. Anderson apartments. That's 56 units. They've already had their topping off ceremony. And what I didn't mention earlier is Mary's House. This is a house conversion project that will render 9 units of affordable housing that will be marketed to the African American LGBT community. Spirit on Lake is the project that I mentioned in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I love them because their rendering and their finished building look identical. I've never seen anything like that. Maybe you all have in planning. And that's going to be 46 units. And then the last rendering is the one you saw earlier from Britta of Town Hall at Center, next to the Center on Halstead. If folks are interested in learning more about these from this article, it is from our newsletter called Sage Matters, which you can find online, and I'll get you the cover right here. It's our summer 2013 issue, and it just came out. Thank you.
Thanks, Serena. Okay, another question. What are the typical financial requirements to live in the LGBT project profiled? Do they require a one-time purchase or rent, etc.? How does healthcare insurance, Medicare, etc. factor in?
This is Serena, the way I understand it, these are subsidized units. So that people will pay a portion of their income based on their average median, average median income from the neighborhood. So like for Triangle Square, they have units that are 30% of AMI, 20% of AMI, 10% of AMI, et cetera. And the majority of these other projects are some kind of tax credit subsidized housing. In terms of if Medicare or Medicaid or health insurance pay for these, I would guess not. Joy's project is a little bit different, so I will unmute and let her address that.
Yeah, I was just thinking that, and thanks for knowing that, Serena. We're talking mainly about affordable housing that might have a case manager as part of their social service program, but definitely do not supply care. Most communities that are care communities, residential and care communities, will accept long-term care insurance and Medicare for rehab and also for short-term companionship and help with activities of daily living. In the care communities today, the way that we were modeled after is that you can do you pay for your basic rent, and then as much as your levels of care determine how much time you need from caretakers is how your finances are set up. So there's no buy-in, although there are those communities who do require an upfront buy-in fee or a fee before you can get in, and that would be your CCRC model, which is the kind of community that Fountain Grove is out in Santa Rosa.
Great, thank you. You mentioned the cost of legal arrangements. In addition to affordable housing, do these programs offer access to free or low-cost legal assistance for aging LGBTQ persons to arrange their wills, transfer of assets or properties, etc., to cover surviving partners?
This is Britta. I'll jump in. And the panelists did a great job of articulating how expensive those documents can be, but how important and necessary they are. So Center on Halstead does have a legal clinic, and the legal clinic is kind of very basic in the services offered. It's basically a free consultation with an attorney. If someone needs additional documents drawn up and additional services, we do our best to connect them with LGBT affirming attorneys who are knowledgeable in that area, in that arena, and may be able to offer a reduced fee, but I don't believe that we're able to offer that free of charge to any of our clients, including our seniors and the potential residents next door. Thanks.
This is Serena. I'll add that our affiliates and other LGBT aging organizations across the country offer similar services, pro bono legal clinics, and they also, many of them participate in a national initiative called Day of Decision, which is a day in April where many attorneys donate time to help people complete some of their basic documents. This would be a living will or durable power of attorney for health care or a durable power of attorney for finances. In some cases, folks might get pro bono services for more advanced documents. I do know that a number of our affiliates and other LGBT aging organizations like the LGBT Aging Project in Boston and Open House in San Francisco, the LA Gay and Lesbian Center in Los Angeles, offer workshops in estate planning and end-of-life planning. But again, to get your own personal documents done, you would need to see a professional and in most cases pay for it.
Thank you. The next question, do fair housing rules allow other protected classes to obtain units in LGBT housing?
I can take that. This is Joy Silver, and I just want to let people know, of course, I am available for consultation, particularly on the provision of assisted living services to our population. The fair housing does allow anyone, regardless of orientation and gender and class and race and nationality, to obtain units. Certainly, that's the federal law, and many states have those same laws to back it up. What Rainbow Vision particularly did was primarily market to the LGBT community, and then we had a good deal of mainstream people who came to Rainbow Vision. As I said, it turned out they were Quakers who seemed to be very progressive. But those mainstream people who moved into our community knew that that's what the community was primarily dominant in, and they were fabulous people, and in fact were actually more prepared for aging than the LGBT community in general. So I do want to mention that.
Great, thanks. We have one last question, and this question I believe is going to be for Britta. What did you discover in the design charrettes, specific design features, and our programs and services regarding the LGBTQ community?
Sure. We definitely had a few specific trends emerge from the design charrettes, which really helped change the initial design of the building. One specific feedback was that the residents really wanted to be able to, the seniors wanted to be able to potentially entertain in their apartment. And in a studio, and a good portion of the building is going to be studios, it was sort of not designed in a way that the bedroom area was very separate from the living room area and the kitchen area. And so the designers, the architects, did some redesign of the space, especially the studios, to try to carve out a little more separate of an area for the sleeping quarters as best that can be done in a studio setting. Also, the residents really, the seniors, potential residents of the new building, really indicated that they wanted a lot of community space, and they wanted a multifunctional community space. So, for example, a common area could be a living room. It could also show movies. It could also have a couple computers for folks to use computers. It could also be a place where programming could happen. So multifunctional, multi-use space was key. The seniors also expressed wanting to make sure the building was safe and secure to the greatest extent possible. And so we have key card access planned so that the building will be secure, and cameras will be installed, again, for security measures. You know, the building is located in a very kind of high-density neighborhood in Chicago. There are a number of bars up and down the street. Again, we're 2 blocks from Wrigley Field, so they did express absolutely wanted to make sure it was a safe and secure building. And along the idea of entertaining and wanting to entertain and have company and have guests, it can be somewhat limited in an apartment, especially a studio or even a 1-bedroom. And so we will have in the building a state-of-the-art kitchen and dining area for, I believe, 10 to 12 people. So for a larger dinner party, a resident could reserve that shared kitchen and that shared dining room to entertain and to have a dinner party, which again I think is a really nice complement to the housing development, and will really make it feel like home. Thanks.
Britta, could you also talk briefly on whether or not there are wait lists, and if so, if there's a lottery system or how all that works?
Yes, so as I mentioned in my presentation, we are anticipating a very great demand and a lot of interest in this housing. So our partners in the project, Heartland Alliance, they will be managing the lease process and the application process. We anticipate that the application process will start a few months before the building is scheduled to open. So we're over a year away from the building opening, so we are not taking applications just yet, although we are keeping track of folks who are calling, who are expressing interest in learning more and wanting to know when the application process is ready to go. Ultimately, it will look like a lottery system, just to make sure we're being fair in the selection process. So it will be a random lottery once we have the pool of applicants, in the event that we have more applicants and we do have apartments available. And we're giving a lot of thought and consideration to how we can best support the seniors who are not selected to live in the building through the lottery system. Many of our seniors are really, really, really excited about this project, and there is the potential for them to be very disheartened or disappointed if they're not able to get into the building. So we're trying to put together resources for them and be able to be a support to them if they're not able to live in this building. Thanks.
Thanks, Britta. And I think Joy has a comment to add on top of yours.
This is Joy. Yeah, I did want to add something. I do want to say that Rainbow Vision found one of the differences was parallel to what Britta found. And so what we built was, it seemed to be more important to the active adults that we had living in the community. They weren't so interested in a golf course, but they sure were interested in having a cabaret. And so we had our own nightclub, and we had drag shows there. Anybody who was out in Rainbow Vision probably got a chance to see some of those drag shows. So that was quite different than your mainstream community. The other thing I think that as far as the waiting list goes, what's critical about this is, remember, we're talking about the residential community and affordable units. We're not talking about when care is needed. And oftentimes people would be on our waiting list, and by the time we were ready to accept them, they had already become, their acuity level had gone so high that they were assessed at a different level than when they first signed up. So I think it's wise to wait. Serena is also mentioning here that the Los Angeles Triangle Square has a long wait list. So as many affordable residences as we have, we certainly could afford to see more of them be built. So thanks.
There's another question that just came in. In addition to the application process, do you do a visit to their current home? Well, I'm going to repeat the question. In addition to the application process, do you do a site visit to their current home? Uh-oh, have we lost sound? Sound is off. I'm not sure why. Hold on. Can we hear me now? Oh, good. Okay, we can hear me now. Phew. All right. The final question is after review. That was odd. After reviewing the application process, along with the application process, do you do a site visit to their current home?
This is Britta. I'll jump.
Serena. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Britta.
I'll touch on it briefly, and Serena, then you can add to my remark. So we have not started the application process yet, but my understanding is that as we get closer to the application process, there will be some type of an assessment that we conduct on the person to make sure that they qualify for this housing, as there is no real care component to it. Whether we actually do a site visit at their home, that's not something I can speak to. I don't think that's something that we're planning, but I don't have the specific information at this time.
This is Serena. What I was going to add is that in the projects that are being built, as I mentioned, Triangle Square is the only completed one. The one in Twin Cities is now taking applications. And in both of the cases, I don't believe they do a site visit to the current home, but it is part of the assessment that might take place in the home. But I haven't heard that it's a required element. I may be wrong, but and nobody's mentioned it yet, but that's my understanding.
Okay, great. Thank you, everybody. I guess, can everyone hear me still? Yes. Okay. Good. All right. Great. Okay. Well, I think that's everything for today. I want to thank everyone for joining us. Britta, Joy, Serena, Tony, thank you for speaking today. This has been a really great webcast, and we've had a lot of participants come on today. So for those that are still in attendance, I just want to remind you again to log your CM credits for attending today's webcast, and you can visit planning.org/CM. Select today's date and the presentation title. I was given a message that for some reason the incorrect date is listed at the moment, which we are aware, and we are fixing it, so it will reflect today's date, August 2nd. And the webcast is available for 1.5 CM credits, and we are recording the webcast, and it will be available on YouTube. Just go ahead on and search Planning Webcast, and all of our previous webcasts are also located on there. And this concludes today's session. Thank you everyone again for attending, and thank you to our speakers again, and for the Gay and Lesbian Division. Thank you very much, everybody, and have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.